And then you've got this, this deck of cards that's like, don't worry about it. Like, these drawings are gorgeous and these things are like physically in your hands. Gives me the confidence that I need to say like, okay, well, maybe there's more to it than I'm giving myself credit for. My problem was that I had a whole bunch of senior leaders sitting around a table, and I needed to get them to engage in a serious risk assessment exercise. And I chose the Premortem card from Workshop Tactics because it creates a great imaginative and creative space to do that in a way that's extremely powerful. Substantively, what came out of it is that there were very real risks about the new offering that we were creating together through our workshop series. And the Premortem exercise allowed us to surface those risks, to prioritize them and choose which ones to focus on, and then for those highest priority risks to design mitigation actions as well as contingency plans. It was a mixed methods approach, so about half of the participants were in the room with me, and the other half of the participants were participating remotely. We did the whole thing in an online whiteboarding platform to make sure that everyone could participate like natively in the same space. One of the challenges to using the Premortem card from the Workshop Tactics deck is making sure that we're balancing the creativity and imaginative and fun elements on the one side with the practical, pragmatic, useful aspects on the other side. This starts to generate a lot of momentum, which is great. People start to buy into it. They start to really get into this imaginative space, and they start to have fun and interact with each other. We need to make sure that we're reining it in effectively. People are not just having fun. They're not just having this kind of cathartic release of finally being able to get risks off their chest, but that productive stuff is coming from this, contributing to the overall project. I think a real moment of success for me was when the workshop participants asked if they could keep doing it after the session was over. They enjoyed it so much that they wanted homework, and that is a really clear indicator of success. A lesson I learned from facilitating this Premortem workshop, the first is that it's easy to have blind spots to certain categories of risk. And so something that I've started integrating into my practice is actually predefining some categories and getting participants to intentionally articulate risks category by category to eliminate those blind spots. And the second is in providing an example of my own to introduce the activity. So when we just describe the activity, people sometimes have trouble understanding what we're really asking for. Providing an example makes the activity super clear. It's really intuitive once you see it done once. And the other thing is that by very intentionally selecting our example, we can establish the boundary for what counts as like reasonable discourse in this space. So typically I use a really, really extreme example so that when people in the room are giving their own examples, they will always feel like they're talking about something reasonable because that guy just said something totally crazy. So nothing I said can sound crazy by comparison to that. Some of the impacts that we achieved using this Premortem card were, first of all, to raise very real risks in the new offering that we were designing. And because we were able to raise them and put them to productive use, we were able to put forward a better offering into the market as a result. The second, more on a kind of internal dynamics piece, is that the senior leaders who were participating in the workshop became much more comfortable with the offering itself and also much more comfortable with each other. And third, from a personal perspective, it opened up the opportunity to have a discussion with the client about continuous improvement, which led to me being able to pitch some follow-up business. If it wasn't for the Premortem card from the Workshop Tactics Pip deck, I think the leadership team wouldn't have felt as comfortable with the project. They wouldn't have felt as comfortable with each other. And the board might have been more resistant to giving the green light to this. In the end, what ended up happening instead is they took a much more collaborative approach with the senior leadership. The board participated in shaping rather than acting as a gatekeeper. I love Pip decks because I had so many workshops to build. It's so easy for me to forget the breadth of like different options that I have to fit them together. What I need to focus my attention on is kind of this big narrative of how the different workshop activities and even the different workshops in a series are going to stack up together, how they're going to create a coherent arc. And having the Pip decks there is so useful to make sure that I always have a rich set of raw materials to draw from. Even just kind of opening up a deck and flipping through at random, I often find a couple of cards like, oh yeah, okay, I hadn't thought about that one in a while. That can fit in really well here. And then also to, once that arc has been crafted, to have very, very concrete instructions about how to run the activity. I don't want to be limited by just what comes to mind right now, the fear of forgetting. So having those reminders of like all of the different things that you could do, Pip decks is super valuable for that. Well, if somebody went to all the trouble of putting this into a deck and packaging it so nicely and giving it these lovely illustrations, like, it must be legit, right? Because In a certain sense, it feels like as a facilitator, all I do is just like show up and talk. And this creates a lot of value for my clients. And I still haven't quite come to grips with the fact that like, that's just my job. There's very little that you can sink your teeth into or wrap your hands around. So it can feel a little destabilizing, you know? It's like you don't have your feet so comfortably under you. And then you've got this, you know, this deck of cards that's like, don't worry about it. Like, these drawings are gorgeous and these things are like physically in your hands. There's substance here. That gives me the confidence that I need to say like, okay, well, maybe there's more to it than I'm giving myself credit for.